Well, good morning and welcome back to the Broadcast Retirement Network. I'm Jeff Snyder. This is BRN AM for Tuesday, February 4th, 2020. Here are our top stories. Big tech wants in for healthcare. Should we be worried? And encouraging women in technology. Well, let's welcome back to the program Dan Klein, Senior Technology and Consumer Products Reporter with The Motley Fool. Hi, Dan. Welcome back to the program.
Hey there, Jeff. Fresh off meeting one of our fans on a cruise ship.
I heard about this, so we got a lot to talk about, but I want to hear. Give us a minute on what occurred.
Obviously, I'm somewhat recognizable, and Motley Fool is a really big brand. Every now and then, I'll have someone say, "Oh my God, Motley Fool," and they know who I am. At this point, I'm on an elevator in a cruise ship, and a guy just looks at me and he goes, "Oh my God, are you the BRN guy?" And we talked for 10 seconds, elevator door open, never saw him again, but it was quite the star encounter.
Wow, that's pretty amazing considering, we've got a big reach now, Dan. Not that to rival the Motley Fool, but that's good to know that people are watching. Okay, so let's shift gears. We want to talk a little about this morning. We've got two great segments. The first segment, let's chat about big tech in healthcare. I want you to weigh in on this because I recently read a story, should we be concerned about this? So Give us your thoughts.
No, I don't think we should be concerned. I think we should be excited. So I wear a Fitbit. A lot of people use an Apple Watch. And the cool thing about these is, they can give you a picture of where you are. Mm-hmm. I use mine to track my steps. Did I exercise enough? Geez, where's my heart rate? It's not foolproof. If you eat spicy wings, it's going to count that as exercise because your heart rate elevates. On the other hand, on an aggregate level, big companies like Apple can look at health data and figure out things that might help us on an individual level. So they might go, oh, hey, these people who are really fit have an odd number of heart attacks or whatever it is, and they can figure out some things that will help you.
Yeah, but Dan, and I agree with you. I mean, I think it's good data. Do you think from a dystopian point of view and an overreach point of view, is there concern that you have any concern about privacy, right? We've talked about this ongoing on this network. Presumably we'll talk until the day that both of us depart this earth. But is privacy a concern for you?
So this is an area where I don't worry about it. Honestly, if Apple wants to send me an email saying, hey, Dan, you might have this terrible health concern, that's probably good news for me. Is it possible that at some point it becomes like a credit check and your employer can pull your health data and say, oh, wow, Jeff looks great, but he's really at risk for these three things. I'm not going to hire him. I guess that's a tiny possibility, but for the most part, that hasn't really happened. I mean, there are very few companies using credit checks to not hire you. So I worry about it a tiny bit, but I think the benefit will far outweigh the negative.
And what about we've read stories and talked to other contributors and yourself about technology firms like Google or Apple partnering with, financial firms and partnering with healthcare organizations. Any concern about possibly cartels developing or even monopolies developing as a result of that? I mean, do you want a tech company kind of owning a large share of healthcare? Because they do. I'm just trying to take the other side of the argument.
Yeah. So if healthcare worked great, I'd worry about that. If I had really great health insurance and so did everybody I know, I'd go, oh no, I don't want Apple ruining that. But do you know anyone that's happy with their health insurance? I mean, I'm very lucky that my wife works for a nonprofit. Not only do they have good health insurance, but there's a $3,000 deductible, and they give her $750 a quarter into an HSA account to cover that deductible, right, which can be used to pay for glasses or contacts or chiropractors or whatever else it might be. So if everyone had great health insurance like we do, I'd say, hey, Apple, stay away. But the reality is most people, you can't make bad that much worse. Like it's probably going to get better if you get big tech coming in.
Yeah, potentially. And I think the industry, like many industries, are probably ripe for disruption. You've talked often about retail. Dan, you just came back from the Consumer Electronics Show and you just showed us your Fitbit. Many people out there may have a Fitbit, an Apple Watch, or some other device. I use a heart rate monitor when I'm working out, and it's in the rowing motion. How accurate is the data? How accurate are these devices? Because I can tell you, when I have used an Apple Watch on a rowing machine, it doesn't pick up the actual distance that I've rowed.
So it's not that accurate. I use it as a broad overview. It can mistake, right now, I'm using my hands a lot, that will count as a step. I'm sitting down. I'm not doing anything. I mentioned before that eating spicy wings registers as exercise. So does eating outside when it's hot. So my Fitbit might think I'm climbing a mountain. The reality is I'm eating a cheesesteak in the sun. So it's not perfect, but it's getting better. And I don't use mine for minutia. I use mine for the big ticket of, hey, did I walk 2,000 steps or 12,000 steps today? I spent the last 3 days on a cruise ship, and I went to the gym twice, but to offset the mild amount of alcohol I was having, I wanted to make sure I was walking enough. So I really made an effort to get to 20,000 steps a day. And yeah, maybe the Fitbit's wrong by 1,000 steps. Maybe it said I walked up 20 flights of stairs when I actually took 3 elevators. But for the most part, it gets it right.
Yeah, I think you're right about that. I mean, I use MyFitnessPal. They're not an advertiser, so we're not endorsing a particular product, but I use MyFitnessPal to basically track what I eat at a general level. And I think I use my heart rate monitor, which goes around my chest, which seems to be a bit more accurate to monitor the type of exercise to do, the maximum heart rate, the low heart rate. I think you're right. I think I think people have a right to have concerns, Dan, about privacy. They should be vigilant in maintaining their data, make sure they're not oversharing too many things, right? We talk about this, whether it's on social media, whether it's in a healthcare device, or whether it's some other form.
Yeah, the reality is I don't think anyone at Apple or Fitbit or Google cares that much about whether I went to the gym today. So on an aggregate basis, I think they want to look at, okay, you're 46 years old, you could lose a few pounds, but you work out a lot. Here's the sort of general health picture for people like you. And eventually you'll get a more proactive picture of what you can do. I mean, if my Fitbit could yell at me, it would tell me you need to sleep more. Because if you look at my sleep score, which I don't think is 100% accurate, because I'm pretty sure I was asleep by midnight last night. It says I went to bed at 2:44 in the morning. But definitely I know I don't sleep enough, and my watch could tell me that. Is it 100% accurate? Absolutely not. But it does sort of give you that picture and, maybe suggest to me, of course, maybe I'd sleep better if I wasn't wearing a watch.
Well, true, but we've got a minute left. You just came back from CES. We talked about urine reading toilets and other things. But what's the prognosis? We use a doctor's term. What's the prognosis on some of these devices getting more accurate over time? I'm assuming they will, but do we have an idea of 3 years, 5 years, 10 years, something like that?
Well, I think we're moving towards, let's call it a democratization of medicine. We've talked about teledoc and other easy ways you can go to the doctor. And I think we're going to get to a point where just built into what normal people have, not wealthy people. Right now, a toilet that can tell you if you've had too much sugar, that's very expensive. That's not something everyone will have. Yeah. But I think within the next few years, that type of technology, whether it be watch-based or wearable or toilet or who knows, you're going to get a lot of diagnostic information not going to your doctor, and that's going to lead to smart things. I mean, we've all skipped our physical. We've all gone too long without getting the tests we need to have. But if your watch tells you, oh, hey, look, you maybe need to go get this blood test, that's probably going to push people to do it. And I think we're going to have more of that, and it just makes medicine more accessible.
And maybe, Dan, we see these toilets in stadiums, airports, and other places. Who knows? And I'm not saying
we still have the toilet trough in many of the men's rooms. So
that's true. It could have been at the Super Bowl, which occurred on Sunday night. So Dan, always great. Well, I'm going to go to commercial break. I was going to dismiss you, but I can't dismiss you because we've got one more segment to do. When we come back, we're going to talk to Dan about empowering women in technology. You're not going to want to miss this. So stay tuned right here on BRN AM. Imagine a new television network that will make you richer, healthier, and in control of your financial future. This network is for the policewoman in Nashville, Tennessee, the baker in Dubuque, Iowa, the teacher in Lexington, Kentucky. We want to make the idea of savings and retirement culturally relevant. But what do you see as a defining issue of the midterms, especially for the smaller businesses? I mean, they are the lifeblood of the American economy. Featuring exclusive interviews, current affairs, and docuseries. 33 years old, you retired early.
The philosophy is money only matters if it helps you live a life that you love.
But you got to start thinking about retirement as soon as you get in.
The Broadcast Retirement Network will drive very high engagement with premium partnerships. So this isn't retirement and savings for your parents or grandparents. This is for all Americans. And we're going to change the way you think about money. Welcome to the next frontier of retirement and savings. This is BRN, the Broadcast Retirement Network. Welcome back. We're talking to Dan Klein, Senior Technology Consumer Products Reporter with The Motley Fool. Dan, welcome. Thanks for staying with the program. I was going to welcome you back. I'm all off this morning. Well, thanks for staying with us this morning.
Hey, 6 minutes and then I get to go to bed. So.
Hey, that's a good point. So Dan, I really like this next story. The University of Pittsburgh has an annual event called She Innovates, and it's designed to empower women, young women, to learn more about technology. And I find this fascinating and exciting at the same time. Let's weigh in on this. What do you think?
Yeah, so it's harder as a man to see this. And I work for an incredibly progressive company. The Motley Fool is as welcoming a place as could be. So there's women in leadership, there's women in technology positions, but I've also worked at other companies and coders are men. You just don't see a lot of women. So this is really about opening up opportunity and taking jobs that, this isn't running back in the NFL. There's no reason a man or a woman would be treated any differently in these fields. It's sort of about creating opportunity, and that's a good thing because if we had twice as many coders as we have now, we still wouldn't have enough coders for all of the jobs available. So this is very, very important.
Yeah, and I think it creates an entry point. What I love about this program, Dan, is I was reading the article about this, and so these young women, and they could be college age, it could be high school age, come together and they work in teams. And I love the fact that, collaboration, Dan, you and I both love working with other people, diverse groups of people with different opinions, young, mature, men, women, all different points of view we want represented. And I love the fact that what they do in this program is they collaborate. So it's not just the man or the woman just sitting there typing code, right? That just seems like it seems like not very productive. I love the way that they're creating collaboration. They encourage it. And I think that actually translates better, Dan, to the work environment of the future.
Yeah, and with technology, you want different opinions because you and I might look at something a certain way. Like, hey, I want this. When I go to, I don't know, let's give an example. When I go to a restaurant, I want to be able to order via a kiosk and have it work this way. And perhaps my wife would look at it and say, boy, I have a totally different opinion. I would like this level of convenience. So you need to hear different voices. You need to look at different things. And it's always good for any company to put people who maybe don't agree together to figure out a solution that works for both of them.
I couldn't agree with you more. And I think, part of that diversity conversation has to be that collaborative effort. It's not enough just to say, this person has to be at the top of the food chain or that person has to be at the top of the food chain. It is about fostering that sense of collaboration. And I love that about this program. The other piece I love about this program is that they're working in groups and teams, and they're riffing, they're coming up with ideas. And at the end of the day, the intellectual capital, the intellectual property that they develop is owned by the team. So it's not the University of Pittsburgh's. It's not some other sponsoring party that just, is using this as a way to kind of get ideas like a pseudo Shark Tank. the people the kids, the young ladies who come up with these ideas, they own it. So they can theoretically carry this through to a startup, right? And I think that's a great idea.
Yeah, and this is something you see all the time in the tech world. Hackathons, come together for a day. We're all going to stamp the thick of ideas, and at the end of it, some of them are good ideas, some of them are bad, some of them will become companies, some of them won't. And getting more voices, having women be part of that is important because, again, if I listed out my 5 biggest problems in the day, I'm not entirely sure they're the same as the ones my wife would list out, and they're definitely not the same as the ones maybe our mothers would list out. So you want to get all these different opinions in. You want to hear all these people from the technology side and then give them the tools to solve the problem. And, look, the world is really tilted towards us. Like, if you are a middle-aged white male, Homer Simpson joked about this once and pulled out Gum and Nuts together at last, everyone is listening to us, and maybe it's important to hear some other voices.
Yeah, I do agree. And Dan, if we pull back to an even larger macro view, I think this is just part of that whole STEM conversation, so science, technology, and mathematics, right? I think that it's part of this. We want to have more inclusion. We want to have more diversity. We want these points of view. We want people of all ethnicities and all genders, or both genders, I should say, or maybe that's not even a good statement to say, to be able to take part in these types of endeavors. If they want to be scientists, if they want to be mathematicians, there's nothing that should stand in the way of people achieving their dreams.
It's very important to open every door, and that goes in all directions. Fields that were traditionally female-oriented obviously are now open to men, and men and women need to kick down the doors in technology and other spaces to be inclusive, because that's going to create better things for all of us.
Yeah, I think that obviously there's a lot of work being done and has been done to create this new environment. I think a lot of big companies, you mentioned the Motley Fool. I've talked to our colleague Devin Banerjee, a contributor on the program, about Microsoft and other companies, not just tech companies, looking for diversity and inclusion. I got to think that this is really a significant trend for the future, because when you're looking at customers, your customers are not just men. Who better to step into the role of the customer than people that look and feel like them, or look and act like them? Maybe not feel, but can empathize and with people in that regard.
Yeah, I don't think you can be a good business if you don't reflect your customer base. So if you're a big company, if you're Microsoft, if you're Google, you're not serving just 46-year-old white men. You're serving absolutely everybody. So you want absolutely everybody represented in that tent, because there are going to be things that you and I don't see that a different opinion, a different person might see. And that's very important. And it's really good to see these walls kind of falling down.
Yeah, I think I'm excited for the workforce of the future. Collaboration, diversity, inclusion. I think we're going to get some great products, great services, and not just on the tech side. It can be in manufacturing. It can be in finance. It can be in it can be fashion design, right? It can be in so many different fields where if you include more people, get different points of view, you're going to offer better products, better services, and ultimately that's going to benefit your organization. Dan Klein, always a pleasure talking with you. I'm so glad you're famous. It's nice to be on the show with a famous person. Go get some rest.
He did mention having met you, so we're
I'm a nobody.
To a small amount of people.
Well, I don't go to many places, so he must have met me either at a diner or at the rowing studio. Dan Klein, always a pleasure talking with you. Go get some rest, and we will talk to you again very soon.
Thanks for having me.
And that wraps up this episode of BRN AM. Hope you found it educational and enjoyable all at the same time. Have a financial topic or someone of interest that you think we should talk to? Drop us a line. And don't forget, for all the news in retirement markets, technology, personal finance, and so much more, check out today's edition of The Morning Pulse. So until tomorrow, I'm Jeff Snyder. Keep on saving, and don't forget, roll with the changes.